coming to get you, Barbara.
The funeral ceremony is today. We found a lot of suspicious things out in that cemetery.
Kathleen's dead for 7 years.
Then again, didn't find anything that based the fact of suspicion on.
I'm Kevin.
And I'm Kayla.
We love movies.
And talking about them.
This is the Martini Window. Hey. On one of our first shows of October, the spooky season, we have the Dialogue Recordist from Dragon Prince, Sausage Party, Halo, Bad Times at the El Royale. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Mr. Dylan Pittman. Dylan, thank you for coming to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me on, guys.
Oh, so I want you to tell us a little about yourself.
Been in and around the film, television, and gaming industry for the last decade or so, mostly in an audio capacity, usually doing dialogue recording, editing, a little bit of sound effects here and there. And I've seen some pretty wacky shit.
I feel like we're about to hear war stories.
I thought he was going to follow that up with something.
Oh, no. It's yeah, you gotta lay out the line and then just see what bites.
And then we burned down the Foley studio that one time.
Look, I'm legally not allowed to talk about that. Bring that up, and you have to contact my lawyers and most of WB if I have to go through that story again.
Dylan here, I actually knew from my days working on, we're on Arrow together, wasn't it?
Yep, that's where I started. Was my first gig was Arrow. It was probably within like an episode or two is when we met, actually.
I feel like you're probably right about that. We had Justin on the show recently talking about Mrs. Doubtfire. I believe you and I actually met through him, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, we did.
Yeah. Kayla, you two ever met?
In person? I believe so, yeah.
I believe so. I mean, we're all CW babies here who came up in the rise of PAs on CW shows. I'm sure there were crossovers at some point and other shows in Vancouver.
Or like just in life and stuff.
Well, yes, in life and stuff.
In life and stuff. We met each other at barbecues. I was more referring to work.
In a professional capacity, I think we've only ever worked together on indie ventures, not in a properly accredited adventure.
Yes, I think our union adventures were very much adjacent, but I've always known of you or had friends that have known you and talked about you. So,
oh God,
oh man,
that is that is always a dangerous road to go down.
A bit of a loaded statement there.
You never know.
So, one thing that Kayla and I are doing right now, this is our October Halloween movie crunch is the what we're calling it. We are trying to get in as many horror movies this month as we can with our within our need to sleep.
Overrated, but continue.
No, I agree.
Honestly, I'm with the strikes going on. I'm feeling the nostalgia for lack of sleep right now.
Yeah, right. What happened to being asleep for 3 hours and going to your next shift?
3 hours.
3 hours. Yeah,
God, I love a car nap.
So today for the Halloween movie crunch, one of our first movies for October, Dylan, do you want to introduce for us and why you want to talk about this movie?
Yes, today we will be talking about Drew Goddard's 2011. I consider a smash hit. I'm not versed in the actual quality of that. Cabin in the Woods, which is my personal all-time favorite spooky/horror movie, and that can be decisive for some people because some people don't consider it as horror-centric as I feel it should be recognized as.
Yeah, I'm actually with you on that. The day the movie came out, I was looking forward to this movie for a long time. I was looking forward to. Did you see this movie in theaters, Kayla?
I did.
You did? Okay, that's good to know. I was waiting for this movie for 4 years, and there's a reason for this. When I was in film school, we had a short film we were doing. We had this actor named Tyler. Tyler was on our short film, and he just told us, oh yeah, just like last week, I worked on this movie called Cabin in the Woods. I was playing Nosferatu, and surely enough, you can actually still find him in the IMDb credits, even though he never actually, I think, ended up in the final product. But he was playing Nosferatu in there. He told me, oh, it's Joss Whedon. And at this time, I'd been going through my second or third binge of Firefly.
As you do.
As you do. So very excitedly, I was eager for it. It was supposed to come out the year after. That movie came out just under 4.5 years later because the studio went under, the distributor went under, MGM picked it up, then MGM lost it, the Lionsgate picked it up. And I remember the date came out, after all that time, the trailers came out. People were like, wow, this movie looks really corny. It looks stupid. That's that. BloodyDisgusting.com on day one, the instant headline was Cabin in the Woods, an instant blood-soaked horror classic. That was their headline right across 5 out of 5 skulls. And I agree with Dylan here because I do find a lot of this movie, the scares work as actual proper scares, which is not common with a lot of horror comedies, which I think you can kind of label this as.
Definitely. I can't remember it might have even been like an escapist article from 2011, which first like tuned me into it, where it was like, it takes all of your favorite horror tropes that you can mock endlessly and then gives A, a reason for it, and B, turns it on its head and then hits you with it again, but makes it more effective. And it's such a fun way of deconstructing and also paying homage to all the best parts of horror and all the dumb parts of horror.
There's a lot of dumb parts of horror, and I say that as somebody who's a big horror fan.
One personal take. I haven't heard other people have this opinion, but I almost, like, even if it's not intentional, I can see the allegories of commercialization of horror in this, where they take the horror tropes. So it's the commercialization of, like, how do we manufacture this? How do we put this in? Like, I loved that concept, and, like, I love backstory. I love great world building. It's one of my favorite things in cinema. And I love that they found a reason for all of these horror tropes and basically just gave everything like such a new leaf. And even the fact that they had these experiments within the movie. Spoiler for this movie.
I'm pretty sure we can spoil Cabin in the Woods on this podcast.
But I love that they even have it going on in like Japan and in other countries. Like, Joss Whedon's world building makes this feel like a global thing with like very like accurate, horror for those countries. I love that it doesn't feel like, oh, it's just the United States with this world-ending tragedy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And like to that point is if when you see in the screens of them going around to like Tokyo and I think it's Beirut and a few other places, not only is the footage like it's CCTV, sure, but it's shot in a way that feels like a horror movie is shot in those areas. The Japanese ones are very wide shot. It's doing Japanese culture horror thing, but also big thing for Japanese horror is throwing kids into the mix because they just like to twist the knife. And then there are shots of I think Indonesia somewhere, and it looks straight up like a rubber monster movie smash up flick. And then there's a shaky cam one from somewhere in like Eastern Europe that's just like a random dark forest with a camera bust on the ground. Like these little details that they throw in there are super fun, and there's blink and you miss it moments, but especially in like the elevator scene or in the murder box fade to black scene where you're just seeing every little tidbit. You can pause and sit there for 20 minutes and find 1,001 cool little things to talk about. It's so well done.
And the monsters are taken from obviously horror tropes in cinema, but then there's some monsters where you're like, that was probably taken from folklore. They've really added in so many monsters that even I think it was like the Russian one looked like The Thing. Mm-hmm. When they were talking about the movies all around the world, it had very reminiscent energy to The Thing.
Yeah.
Which one are you referring to? Which one was that?
It was one of the ones that had failed on screen.
Oh, that had like the big fail going across it?
It had the big fail going across it. It was like this in the middle of nowhere, and then it had like an explosion in it. It was very much like The Thing.
Huh. Yeah, it kind of looked like the flaming husk of like the remnants.
The flaming husk.
Like you're watching it. Yeah, I didn't catch that. That's so funny. Like it's right after the Arctic area explosion.
It's one of the failed.
Right. Okay. Huh. Yeah. I did not notice that. The one thing I really love about that whole sequence, actually, and you are right, like, especially if you're a horror fan, like I'm sitting here right now, I got my Michael Myers bobblehead on my desk. I got a stuffed Leatherface downstairs. Kayla has made, like 3 or 4 paintings for me, digital paintings for me, horror paintings for like Christmas and Valentine's Day and stuff. I'm a horror fan, to say the least. So,
and I have a Cthulhu here. God representation.
We got the puzzle box downstairs from Hellraiser. Like, But what I'm saying, though, actually, we do a fun thing with that where I have people solve the puzzle box, and we have those Philips Hue lights. Whenever they do that, I quickly turn all the lights to red.
Beautiful.
Oh my god!
All we need is a cursed doll now.
Well, I think it was
Great
Chris. Chris was here. Chris Layton. He was at our house, and I gave him the puzzle box to solve, and I gave him a couple joints beforehand. So, and he was just like, when the lights went red, he didn't know that was gonna happen. He was, holy fuck! He freaked out for like a quick second. Like, that was so funny. But as a horror fan, though,
Check out Chris Layton in the Simpsons podcast, by the way.
oh yeah, oh man, yeah, that's gonna be coming up soon. But as a horror fan, the Where's Waldo aspect of this whole movie is nuts. Like those images you see online where it's like the longer you look at this image, the more messed up it gets.
Yeah, that's his
It's like
movie.
that, but for horror.
Yeah. Well, like in the scene where Marty and Dana are going, or no, Dana, is that the
Dana,
yeah. Marty and Dana are going down in the elevator, and it does the pull out, and you can start seeing all the boxes, and you see like the ghosts and the Purge family and the killer clowns, the ballerinas, and all these things. If you two boxes to the screen right and one below it, there's just a boomer from Left 4 Dead just vibing in the box. He's just hanging out, like, and it's just straight up. It's a source mod filmmaker copy paste boomer, and that's fucking hilarious because it's never in any of their shots. But yeah, it was like because if you look at the IMDb for this, the prosthetics, the makeup department, all these monsters are as physical and practical effects as they could. And then you've got the handful of CG ones that are really, really well done, and the handful of ones where they're just like, it's in the background, fuck it, we'll just put a giant anaconda, it'll be fine. But it still works. And this is just the visual, the storytelling, the fact that they're like, oh, we're gonna make sure we pull from every trope.
Yeah.
But like, I gotta scream about the way that this is written. From the ground up, from the first opening shot to the end of the movie, how everything ties together through the Whedon's like callbacks and call forwards, and it's just one point to another. You can see it coming if you're paying enough attention. Where you can start seeing the cracks. The cracks fill themselves back in, but they just get bigger and bigger as the movie goes on in the best way possible.
Yeah,
and like what I really loved about this movie is every time I see a horror movie, like I've seen so many, Friday the 13th where you have the teenage tropes, but when you actually have the kids get there after ignoring the Harbinger, I love that they put in the Harbinger, by the way, like, don't go up there, the don't go up and bury your friend in the pet cemetery. Sometimes dead is better. They have that guy, but I love that they're not anything like the stereotypes, and just part of the amusement is watching the people try and turn them into them by manipulating them with, like gas and stuff like that in the house to make them become what they need to be for the ritual. Yeah.
And then like the visual distinction as well as like the movie starts and everyone's like generic college kid, other than like the pointed out hair dye and Marty looking like the most obvious stoner ever because you have to. But like the Kurt, who's who becomes the epitome of jock for this. He starts off, he's just a regular dude who like,
he's actually an academic.
Exactly. He's telling our principal character like, oh, don't read this book, read these books instead. The teachers will be more susceptible to you. You'll get better answers. This one's kind of dumb. I'm a year or two ahead of you in this academic course. I'm here on school, and you learn all these things. And as even up until like they're in the truck driving, all of a sudden he's wearing like the Letterman jacket and he's being a bit more rough and tumble. And sure, you get to the point where they straight up points like, when do you call your friend an egghead? When are you all of a sudden a frat bro horn dog? Like sure, it gets very apparent, but the subtlety of it happening, if you're not paying attention, you're just like, oh, he just put on a jacket. But also the way he stands, his demeanor changes. And it's Chris Hemsworth. You're expecting kind of a bigger, jockier person, but he starts the film very smart, very calm, very collected, and then just becomes a raving degenerate, which is, it's fun to watch. And even the guy who plays Holden, the nerd, again, starts off totally normal, academically like fit. He catches the ball across the road. He's upright. He's got a nice like demeanor to him. Halfway through the party scene, all of a sudden he's wearing glasses. He's hunched. He's small. He can't fill a full sentence anymore. He's becoming that academic, the nerd, quote unquote. And it's so fun to watch everyone just spiral, and then having the guys in the control room panic when it doesn't work exactly right because they're trying to facilitate to the old gods or the viewers, and they very poignantly point out it's like, we have to do this as tropey and as boring as possible because that's what people want, i.e. you do the slasher thing like you pointed out. It's gotta fit in this little box, or else you're not gonna make the box office back, because that's what people expect. You do the outside the wall thing, and it's too much. It's very fun.
Even the virgin was sleeping with her teacher in the beginning of the film. Like, she's not a virgin at all.
No, but like they said, you gotta use what you got, and if they gotta fake it, they gotta fake it a little bit. And it's poignant, it's fun. It's just it's a great way of unraveling, re-raveling, and then going, oh no, it's bigger than you ever thought. Also, giants end the movie.
One of the things I also love is the betting scenes where they're betting on it, and you have the different team saying, "We bet on zombies." It's like, no, we bet on zombie redneck murder family.
Yeah. Oh, you've always got that one guy at a party, or your DM in D&D. Well, actually, technically, totally a different thing. And it's like okay, but like seeing the board out, and like because in the betting scene they have the whiteboard with all the creatures, and then you see all the creatures in the elevator scene later, and you're kind of like connecting the dots, and you can see little trinkets of what could be, especially when they're in the basement, and you can see every one of those monsters is represented by some stupid trinket. Like, you've got the Hellraiser style ball, you've got the ballerina music box, you've got the conch so close to the mermaid. I want to see that movie. I'm 100% on board with the guy in the control room. I want to see the mermaid murder movie, because that would be funny as shit.
I personally love the little ballerina girl with like the hole in her face.
Oh, it's such a cool
with
design.
All of the teeth. It's so creepy and cool, but it's also like weird childlike innocence. There's so many monsters you could geek out about this. Like, I absolutely love the story, but like, this is a costume is wet dream to like go into background and be like, okay, you're making a bunch of monsters. What are we doing?
Mm-hmm. When this came out, and I did the thing, you know when you find that piece of media and you just kind of do a deep dive a little too hard, and you just start finding like the lore that they ever used, or the ideas they had, and all this stuff that sounds really cool.
You sound like me literally after I watch any movie. It's every single time is Wikipedia, IMDb, Reddit, and then whatever other trinkets I could find.
He's like a Reddit rabbit hole.
It's a very, I'm sure it's a very uncommon thing that no one else does, but the really cool thing is they put together little dossiers on every single monster that appears in those scenes. And I think on the DVD extras, you can go through a handful of them. But they were like, oh, we're going to properly give a bit of lore and what the power set could do, so that the animators and the visual guys could have an idea of what they were doing, be it with a stage direction for the actors. But more importantly, it ends up playing like an SCP, where it's just like, I have this thing that is spooky. It does this weird thing. It'll probably be in the background. We'll never see it. But they put so much effort into it. But there's one, and you can see... I think you can see it in the big pull-out scene. In one of the boxes, there is a little boy in like a schoolboy uniform. It's that classic like Antichrist looking like kid with the slick black hair. Damien. Yeah.
No, it's the kid from The Ring, and he had like...
The Ring? No, Damien from The Omen.
No, but in The Ring, I remember the small boy in The Ring had abnormally like short shorts, and he just looked very strange proportionally. I think it was his costume. The shorts were just slightly
shorts are Damien though,
but
I mean, it's more of it's just that
creepy,
trope.
Like
yeah,
it's in a Japanese boy way.
Yeah, it's that little schoolboy thing, but like the inspiration is Damien. It's like that little nod, but they had a little like tidbit write up for him. It was like what we want him to do in this thing, and I think his name, like they named him. His name is Tommy. What he does is he shows up and he just like walks around and is like general like like too calm, too stoic little boy. What's he do? He locks eyes with somebody, and all of their blood jumps a foot to the left, and they die. Why was that not in the movie? I want to see that, because that's fucking hilarious.
Oh my god!
Yeah, it's stuff like that.
I have the Blu-ray for Cabin in the Woods. I gotta go through these dossiers.
Yeah, there's like not very long. There's little treats, like a couple of sentences. Sometimes it's like a werewolf. It does dog stuff, but like, they're fun. It's just like that little level of detail. hilarious. Yeah, so again, like it's the inspiration was from, could have been from 100 different things, but they've got this little boy that just shows up. He walks around very stoic, very calm, and he'll lock eyes with you, and all of your blood in your body just leaps a foot to the left, and you die horrifically. And that's funny as shit, and it should almost have its own movie, or even a short. I would want a short film like that. That'd be great. Who wouldn't want that? where the pseudo Antichrist kid just makes all your fluid leaves.
Holy shit.
It'd be funny as hell.
Honestly, I just want an anthology series about every single one of these monsters that could be a 15-minute episode. I don't care. It'll be called the Dossier Files, pitching this to whoever wants to fund it.
If you like the Magnus Archive, if you like SCP, we got a thing for you. Hit us up.
We got sound, we got a director, we got a writer. Here we go, guys. Come on, give us the money.
Oh man, you're talking earlier about about when Joss Whedon's writing for this movie, and I mean, Joss Whedon has said himself that this movie is like he calls it a loving hate letter to horror. And
I see that.
Yeah, I mean that's his own words. He called that, and I kind of have to wonder, like, he makes some decent points. I mean, looking at what Cabin in the Woods was saying about the old gods, the viewers, and what they do if you don't do the same things over and over. I look back at some other movies that maybe since Cabin in the Woods came out that I think kind of proved their point. Like, one movie I'm a particular defender of, and I absolutely will not be defending this right now, is Halloween Ends. Did you see Halloween Ends?
Yes, I have.
I'm guessing by that lack of reaction that you were not a fan. However,
it was fine. I'm not gonna rip it apart, but I'm like, it wasn't like not a ton of staying power for me.
But in any case, though, people lost their shit that this was a Halloween movie without having a focus on Michael Myers, even though Season of the Witch was fantastic. Mm-hmm. But again, even going back to that, Season of the Witch is why they got scared and went back to Michael Myers, and that's exactly what this movie's also trying to explain. Like, the insatiable, repetitive nature of a lot of not just horror fans, I think, but a lot of fans. Like, we see it in the Star Wars genre, in Star Wars franchise, we see it in Marvel now and all that. Like, the entitlement of fans, I think, is also really an underlying theme of a lot of what he's trying to talk about here in general.
I think
but yeah, what I was basically trying to say with that is, like, it's to me, it's a sort of an emphasis on fan entitlement and toxic fandom, which of course we saw Scream 5 do as well somewhat recently. But obviously this is in a much more metaphorical way with Cabin in the Woods. It's a whole puzzle for horror fans. I mean, I'm looking at the poster right now, and even the poster's a freaking Rubik's Cube of Cabin.
It's great.
So one thing that I do really like is it's, people want to see these tropes, but I think it's an almost psychological need to watch people get punished. Like, the whore has to die first, the virgin has to die last. It's a lot of all bases for morality that somehow got caught up in horror tropes where the audience wants to see people punished for their sins.
Yeah, it comes into there's a little bit of like a Revenge of the Nerd type thing where it's just like, oh, these are the cool partying kids. Fuck those guys. Get shit on. Like, haha. Yeah. The quote unquote outcast is out there fucking them up. Like, that works, and it can serve a good purpose. And like a lot of recent horror movies, to a degree, have kind of skewed or done something a little different. Personally, I've always really liked horror movies that like get into your supernatural, your weird stuff, and don't fully explain it, or explain it in a really interesting way. Because at the end of the day, it's like horror movie, slasher, bad guy is sad, kill the teenagers because they are young. This takes that, puts it on its head, gets very involved with it. What's another like oh crap, why can't I think of what it is? There's a horror movie a few years ago. It was very audio based. It was super good up until the basement point, and then I don't want to watch it anymore. The fuck was it called? Shit. All I remember is the turkey baster.
Don't Breathe.
That's the one.
Oh my god, I love Don't Breathe.
Don't Breathe has such a cool concept. It's a very interesting, fun way to do it. And then it got a little gross, and then it got better again because everything had comeuppance. But like, super cool concept, super interesting idea. Taking the same basic idea of a general horror movie, kind of putting it on its head a little bit and going for a different angle. Super interesting. So like, it does work, and sometimes the fandom can just be wrong, or the genredom, if you will, is full of shit. And sometimes they're right, and sometimes you just gotta take a wild leap, which is what this movie does, I feel, in an incredibly good way. Because they not only, like, you're having your classic horror trope, you're having your conspiracy theory trope, you've got a little bit of your internet horror SCP thing going on, you've got your your Hollywood being like, hey, guys who watch these movies, relax, you're overthinking them too much. Like, it's got all these little levels that are very, very fun. And I went through recently and rewatched it with someone who had never seen Cabin in the Woods before, and who subsequently likes the idea of horror but not watching horror movies because they find them very dumb, derivative, or like they're doing the thing. Why are they splitting up? This is stupid. And this movie, I told them, Cabin in the Woods is great for that, because I want you to do exactly that, because within the next minute to 5 minutes, you will be given an answer to why you think these things, why you feel these things. And they watched the whole movie, and they were an instant fan. It's a classic for them now. They're so happy with it. And that's, I think, the beauty of this movie, is it can turn a non-horror fan into a horror fan by just kind of making fun of itself in the best way.
It feels very like gateway horror to me. Like, I would show this movie to someone who's not necessarily into, like, all of the horror gore, but I could easily show them Cabin in the Woods without, having like Saw levels of anxiety when it comes to it, right?
Yes. We do not do Saw for Baby's First Horror Movie. That's a bad idea.
No, for Baby's First Horror, we do Saw 3.
So
Baby, I think we go back with Baby's First Horror, which I think was a lot of ours, at least of our generations. The original Willy Wonka's just the tunnel scene for 20 minutes. Because that just fucked us all up for a little bit too much.
I almost learned that as a monologue for drama class.
Really?
Really?
I decided that they were like, that's a scene. I was a child, and I'm like, I want to do the Willy Wonka scene in the tunnel, and my teacher was like, maybe you shouldn't.
You just sit
anything else.
You're just sitting beside the light switch, flicking it on and off, monologuing at the class. That'd be funny. Oh my god.
No one understood me.
It's not a phase, Mom. I just want to make chocolate and kill children.
And then I went into movies. I made a career out of that. So
here's a question for you. Did you know that the
out.
original ending for Cabin in the Woods was actually supposed to have them actually preventing the apocalypse? Like, the whole nihilistic ending of Cabin in the Woods was actually reworked later in development. Eh?
really?
Was it?
Yeah. That whole fucking ending of fuck the world completely was a late entry in the whole development.
What was the original ending?
Okay, in the original script, the narrative was supposed to have a more traditional ending where the characters managed to save the day and prevent the apocalypse. This would have followed a more typical horror or adventure movie formula, providing a resolution that reassures the audience. So appeasing the exact audience so they don't destroy the world, that's meta in its own way.
It is meta in its own way.
But I prefer the fuck the world ending.
I do too, because like that, the final conflict with the two of them where she finally she's like, oh shit, I can save everybody. And she thinks about killing Marty, and Marty's just like, dude, what the fuck? We literally realize this is the dumbest shit. Why are you doing this? And then that final set where they're just sitting there smoking that last joint, it's like, man, that's fucking wild. Can you imagine if you killed me? Yeah, that would have sucked. Anyways, the world's gonna end. All right, let's go. Like, that's a good way to end this movie, because like, honestly, I think Marty's the unsung hero of this entire movie.
Unsung.
Dude's just vibing hard.
Dude knows what's up, man. He's a lot smarter than he looks. Like, it's hilarious to me, the fool in this movie, like, everybody's essentially the opposite of what they're being forced to be. For the purposes of the ritual, but in Marty's case especially, the fool is hands down the most like on the ball person here.
Well, to get a little weird in a different sense, if you think about tarot, the arcana of the fool, the zero card, the start of the adventure, the empty void. Yes, it means like the empty-headed, the blissfully unaware, the start of the journey, but also the fool becomes the world at the end of the hero's journey, having gone through all the trials and tribulations, meeting the magician, seeing the strengths of the world, meeting the great evils and the great goods, witnessing death and seeing the rebirth of everything, it becomes the world at the end where it is so omnipotently aware of everything going on that it makes the right choice, makes the last call. That last call being, yo, there's a fucking werewolf. Nah, fuck this. She can figure it out herself. And just watching the world end, rebirthing the whole system. Him being the fool is weirdly poignant in a totally probably unintentional way, only for those people who are super weird into cards. But it's still, it works. The thing is, it works really, really well because it all fits in this weird dynamic that's very fun. Especially, you know, the dude's high the whole time. You get the whole puppeteer monologue that gets interrupted because Pop-Tarts is the funniest fucking thing in the world. It's great. It's just good.
Okay,
writing.
so you just cut out after the word puppeteer monologue,
and
you came back on Pop-Tarts.
No, that was it. That was exactly. I literally did that purposely. That was he does because that's how it happens. The thing he's doing the whole puppeteer monologue. He's talking about like we're all just puppets on strings. Nothing matters. And then Dana points out, "Is like, what the fuck are you talking about? Puppeteers, Pop-Tarts?" Just like his brain shuts off and things away. Because the dude is high as fuck, but still knows what's going on. It's like being a BC kid all over again.
I've also found that in a lot of like tarot card readings that I've seen or been in the presence of or had like done for me, the fool is often the beginning.
It's always the beginning. It is
the fool
card
is
zero.
the fool is card zero, and it's like even if you're going in for a reading where you're like, oh boo, waha, my life is going badly. If you get the fool, at least it means there's a new start in some other thing that makes you happy.
Exactly. So and that can be the start of the journey. That can be start of the old odds rising and everything getting a base level reset. Capitalism coming crumbling down for the better use of the fans.
Oh God. I have a thought here. When I was rewatching the movie, I thought to myself, I remember seeing Cabin in the Woods in theaters when it came out, and I always thought Kristen Connolly would go on to be like a huge scream queen after that. Data.
Yeah.
Why is it this movie was so iconic and so successful, and Hemsworth is the only one that's really made a career out from it, and not really from it?
No, yeah, because that was the weird thing. Because of those delays, I believe at least one of the Thor movies ended up coming out before Cabin in the Woods did. So it kind of...
that other Chris Hemsworth one, it was the remake of Red Dawn.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so he just, so it's randomly, all of a sudden Thor is in this weird indie horror movie, and it doesn't change his career at all. It just kind of adds to his rep in only good ways.
But what about everybody else?
Which is, again, well, it's one of those things. It's like it's a horror movie, so like either they're gonna scoop all the actors, or all the actors are just gonna continue doing what they do.
I guess so. Weird. I feel like Kristen Connolly had a bigger career ahead of her after this. I was always shocked that we're 11 years out of the movie now, and I'm very surprised to see that she did that show Zoo, the show about zombie animals that lasted 2 seasons. Mm-hmm. Nothing from there. Nothing since then though. Yeah. Franz Kranz too. He was an audience favorite from this movie. I'm surprised that we're not sitting here watching the Franz Kranz Renaissance here in this later era.
I think also the movie was very nuanced in the dichotomy of the characters, like what they were supposed to be and what they were, and them fighting against the manipulations, obviously. But also at the same time, people still saw them as the stereotypes. I think when people went in to see this movie, they didn't necessarily get the entire nuance of it. And with horror, sometimes people just dismiss it as oh, the actors aren't good because they're in horror.
But this was a critically acclaimed horror. This wasn't like a sequel. This was something that critics around the world would be like, yo, go see this movie. These cast members, the cast were being acclaimed on their performance. That's why I'm even in the horror world, I never saw these people making a bigger splash in their career.
No, I understand that, but I also don't expect studio execs in charge of this to be able to see the nuance and actually look at it. They might just see the word horror and be like, okay, well, it's not a big budget movie compared to what we usually do.
Yeah. Maybe. I don't know.
There's a weird back end to these sorts of things where it could be that no other writers or directors liked or had a use for these characters, or their publicists or agents didn't feel that they were like, okay, we've done horror, move on, do something better with your life. Like, it could be something like that. There's, who knows what the back end, the secret backdoor Hollywood aspect of these things could be, because sometimes we see something, it gets critical acclaim, it's amazing, the fans love it, and we never hear anything about the project or the cast ever again.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Like, you do hear a lot of these hyped up projects that nothing ever comes up to, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But regardless, like, every single actor in this movie hit the home run. Like, and what I absolutely loved the when they basically hit the button and all of the people manipulating them start getting murdered. It's just very, like, satisfying to be like, you're okay to sacrifice someone else because it's for the sake of the world. But when it comes to you, it's like,
yeah. No, I totally understand that. And it is very satisfying. And although there are a few things I always wondered, my first thought is, why would you have the cabin be a trapdoor away from the entire facility?
to release the monsters closer.
Yeah, well, that also, that adds to the other things that, like, if we want to go and get real nitpicky about things, is like, okay, so we have the American branch with the cabin. Possibly that's what's always there. The facility underneath the cabin. Though we do know the elevators do move left and right, so it could be farther or lower.
Yeah, it's basically a walk elevator.
Exactly. But then, is there a pit to the old gods in all the other headquarters as well? Is the old gods just in the center Earth, and that's just a really deep hole?
That's kind of what I figured. I figured the old gods were literally like the Earth's core. Exactly.
So then, can you go from the sacrifice platform at the end of this movie and go to the Japanese one? Just by walking through, is there just like back access tunnels with like the Austin Powers style like little carts between the areas?
So what you're saying is you're wondering if they dug a hole all the way to China.
Pretty much, yeah. Like here, maybe this is the thing. Maybe those like the Tibetan monk tunnels. Maybe they're in on it. They're the guys digging all the little holes, and they've got little go-karts ripping around, just taking the piss.
Well,
who knows?
Saying, you remember when you were a kid? You're like, I'm gonna dig a hole to China, like that whole thing when you're a kid. I mean, Kayla, you're from Australia, so the geography was probably different. I don't know if it for you guys was like dig a hole to America or something like that.
No, it's dig a hole to China still.
You kids did not understand your geography of the planet then.
No, their hole is just less deep. You just go more like in a horizontal line.
We're just born being able to swim real good.
There you go.
We are.
That's fair. You know what?
I imagine that, okay, on this topic, is there customs between each country in this underground system of holes? Beyond the ocean?
There's NSA checkpoints.
Are you entering Japanese territory? You have to have your passport with you.
Yeah, because if you leave the facility, it's like, I'm going for a coffee run. You get deported. You're like, fuck, I gotta restart the whole damn thing.
Oh my god! This series of tubes, we call it the internet. Anybody listening who's under the age of 21 probably doesn't get that reference. Oh my god.
Are we old?
Sorry?
Are we old?
Yes, we're fucking old.
Speak for
Everybody
yourself.
in this conversation is old.
I have the heart of a child. I keep it in a jar. It reminds me of the good old times when I didn't kill that child.
Yes, back when you were at the training of your old professor, Baba Yaga.
Baba Yaga.
Look, Granny Bones, she's a lovely lady. She's got a lot of extra fingers. I just get snacky sometimes. Kids have good bits. No, wait. Let's not go with that. That could be taken wildly out of context. Remove that from this fucking podcast.
Oh my god.
You know what?
It was very funny, so it's not being removed. But I will add a disclaimer: but you do not actually capture and kill children, and you never actually trained under Baba Yaga.
Allegedly.
We cannot confirm or deny anything on this podcast other than I am uncontrollable when it comes to a comedy bit. I will take it too far and then I get in trouble, and that's how the fire started. Anyways, Cabin in the Woods is a movie that came out in 2011. It's about killing a bunch of teenagers, and nothing bad happens to anybody important, I swear.
What?
Also coffee mug bongs are hilarious and a utilitarian weapon that can be used to prevent the apocalypse, and everyone should own one for home defense.
Actually, on that note about the coffee mug bong, so Do you know how long it took for that to become a real item that you could buy?
How long?
It took like fucking years before they actually started selling that thing. Like a few years ago, like 2020, 2019 is when they finally started selling that thing as a official bong.
I wonder if it was like because like the popularity of the movie and like it just took too long, or somebody was just like, man, you know what? That was actually a hilarious idea. Why don't we have one of those?
So I remember when the movie came out, I was looking online, I was trying to see if I could buy that bong, right? Mm-hmm. And there's people making like DIY versions of it. There's people making like, oh yeah, we got our own version of the bong from Cabin in the Woods. But it wasn't until like 2019 that some company finally went out and said, no, fuck it. That movie has been a hit, and then people wanting this thing for years, and they made a proper, effective, proper to the movie coffee mug bong, right?
Oh, nice.
To sell. It's retractable and everything. It's I know this because I looked it up before we did this podcast, because I started thinking about how fun it would be to have that bong.
Now the question is, how many did you order?
Currently none, because I'm a film worker, and there's one of two strikes still happening. So SAG-AFTRA strong, and WGA strong, but they've already got what they're asking for.
Hell yeah, we did. Let's go.
Oh yeah. Oh, I'm so happy about that. But
they expect just starvation, but not solidarity.
Little do they know, we're good for both.
I haven't eaten in months.
So going back to Cabin in the Woods here.
Yep.
I mean, we're not really ever going away from it, but this is just how the show works. So going with Cabin in the Woods here. One scene in particular that I found is very prominent to show the kind of changes that we're making is probably one of my favorite scenes in the movie. Truth or Dare. Remember that one?
Yes.
Truth or Dare. I dare you to make out with that moose.
It's a wolf.
It's very clearly a wolf, dude. Like, but that whole bit there, where you start seeing like the actual transitions, and I think that's really like, the first real scene where you're kind of getting this whole moment of like, I like to call it like the Breakfast Club moment. It kind of gives you like this moment where it's not necessarily people confessing, but the idea that you have all these people now, and this is like the representation of who your characters are now going forward. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and well, it's also, I believe, the first scene where you've got the full costume swap, because the previous scene to that is they arrive, they have the mirror scene, they go swimming, and then we do a facility scene, and we jump back to this, and all of a sudden, everyone is in their archetype outfit. Yeah. They're in their personality. Kurt's wearing his Letterman jacket. Jules is wearing her booty shorts. Holden's got glasses and a flannel all of a sudden. Marty hasn't changed, because Marty is just consistent because he's a good lad.
And he's aware of how weird all this is too.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying. There's like, so very similar scene to that would be like, I said Breakfast Club, but actually a better example for a lot of people listening would probably actually be X-Men First Class. The scene where they're all sitting there coming up with their new superhero names, stuff like that. But that's like a representation of like, these are your characters going forward. And what I love about Cabin in the Woods is we got two of these. We got a full introduction at the beginning of who these people were, and we basically got a second introductory scene out of who these characters are going to be from this whole fire pit scene. Obviously gravitating with that whole making out with the wolf, like you said, Dylan, the booty shorts on her, which I'm pretty sure were straight up Daisy Dukes.
They were, yes.
Yeah.
They were Daisy Dukes. Yeah. And so
they were made for walking.
They were it was a character choice to hammer home a point. I promise there was no other intention, I swear.
And that point was Chris Hemsworth.
I think the point was Bud.
Well, hammer home the point. Chris Hemsworth said it's a point. Hammer home Chris Hemsworth.
Yes. That is funny. I didn't understand.
Did I just mansplain that? I just mansplained that.
You 100% took a very long walk to say, haha, penis joke.
You don't want to know how far I'll walk to make a penis joke.
You don't know how far you'll walk for penis? Is that what I'm hearing? Sorry, you cut out?
No, you heard that right.
100% correct. I live with him.
Good. Yes. Well, and then like, yeah, it's a full second introductory scene where you get almost a 180 of everybody's character, which is super cool.
Yeah. I do want to say, so this was Drew Goddard's first movie. This is his first movie he ever directed.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. And the only other movie he's directed was Bad Times at the El Royale. What happened, do you think? Because he was lined up for so many different movies between Cabin in the Woods and then. He also ran Daredevil for the first, and then quit after like 2 episodes, I think.
Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, he's got all executive producer roles on a lot of big projects, to be fair.
Yeah, he also directed a lot of The Good Place.
Yeah, he did.
I love that show so much.
I love The Good Place.
That was basically just my lesson in psychology and theology and everything. They had a literal trolley problem. It was amazing.
No, that was fantastic.
It could be very well that like he directs, because from what I know about El Royale and what I know about Cabin in the Woods, when he directs, he's directing passion projects for things that he really wants, and with those two, they're almost always like homages to other film greats.
I mean, Bad Times at the El Royale was essentially a big love letter to Tarantino.
Exactly. It was 1-to-1 a big Tarantino movie, and I think actually double check here. Is Hemsworth the only returning character in that? Or
I believe he is.
I think he is. Yeah. Yeah, he is. Okay, never mind. I was gonna say that he's got a bit of the old squad back, but he's only got the one. But still, again, it's just like, I mean, you could almost say that he likes to bring certain people back and have them play entirely against type, which is not untrue.
I mean, you can say that, but he has 2 movies.
It's true. Again, this is where the argument completely falls apart. It's like he doesn't
have a pattern to look at yet. Like
no, but 2 is still similar. But like it seems like when he gets his hands into something that he's very passionate about, and he gets a chance to be full control, motherfucker hits it home both times. As it turns out,
both times. I agree completely. And what he did in Good Place as well. So aspects about this movie too. We were talking about the practical effects earlier with this. And you are right. This movie takes a heavy emphasis on practical effects. And I'm a big fan of that, obviously. I kind of want to dive into that a little bit. What were some of your favorite actual practical effects you saw in this movie? Obviously the purge scene, one of the most like satisfying moments in a horror movie, that system purge. Mm-hmm. But that scene alone has so many different examples, the cubes that we were talking about earlier. What are some of your favorite practical effects in this movie, makeup wise or otherwise?
It's got to be the mermaid scene. It's got to be the mermaid scene, because that the kit is inventive and interesting. The blood spout is fucking hilarious. The fact that the way it crawls out of the smoke, like you've got all those which are super fun. The even just down to the set dressing, the basement, like how good it looks, how claustrophobic it feels. Like that is just a cramped, shitty room. Like that, and then like you got the cavalcade, the carnival reveal of like the shot after shot of people just coming out of the elevator, and they're all entirely different makeups, different prosthetics. Even the werewolf looks good, and that's the most rubber-rassed werewolf I've seen in ages, and it's just a good classic werewolf design.
Yeah,
that's fun. It's just they're fun prosthetics more than anything else.
I think my favorite was Fornicus, Lord of Bondage.
Right, yeah.
Credited, the Hellraiser guy.
Right, they
the buzzsaws in his head and everything.
Yeah, in the credits, he is Fornicus, Lord of Bondage.
Yep. Yeah, I forgot they actually they credited a bunch of the monsters.
I personally loved the unicorn. Because it just looks like a majestic unicorn that stabs people. Very Legends of Tomorrow.
Yep. It's just, you know what? We're going to put a horn on a horse and we're going to let it go horse crazy. And it's going to be great.
Oh my God. Was that a real horse or was that CGI?
That was a real horse, I believe.
Could you imagine being on set the day of that fucking system purge, the animal wrangling on top of the makeup, on top of the practical effects, on top of the costumes, on top of the blood, on top of the CGI?
Well, here's the thing.
Sir, we need to find the horse wrangler. Where is she? Where is she? We're about to shoot the scene.
She has been doused and is currently being rinsed off. There is too much blood and all the piping exploded. When I rewatched this movie, because like they do the big purge scene and the fight happens, and then there's that snap cut afterwards, and it's just the big hall covered in gore and like bits raining from the ceiling. All I could do is, I don't know off the top of my head how much of that gore was practical versus vis effects, but I have been on a set where we had that amount of gore and the smell immediately returned to my nostrils. And oh my God, if that room smelled nearly half as bad as the autopsy room in the first season of Altered Carbon, I feel so bad for that cast and crew.
Oh my God.
I feel like that movie is very much they were on incognito mode on the internet when they did their research.
It's like, how much blood is too much blood? And then somebody watched a bunch of anime. They're like, we could add more blood. That's fine.
I swear I'm not a psychopath. I just work in film. This is for research. Honest.
I mean, all
Honest.
three of us are writers. I'm sure search history would flag a few CIA pages.
Look, I'm on a first name basis with my NSA agent. He's really chill. He does give me a heads up when things I'm looking up are a little too close to home.
Do you send him Christmas cards? I hope you send him Christmas cards.
I give him an invite to the premiere of most things.
See,
See, Bill, I'm not crazy. It's totally fine. My therapist agrees. It's okay.
It's creative, okay?
It's creative.
You know, one reference they made in this movie, Kayla brought it up earlier, but one reference they made in this movie that I really love, because it's not really a character you see much in horror movies anymore, is they refer to him as the Harbinger, Mordecai,
Mm-hmm.
right? And Kayla's pointing out, he's like in Pet Sematary, oh, you don't want to go up there, and don't, sometimes that is better. Like that whole guy who always warns you not to do the thing you're going to go do, and you're going to go do it anyway because he's old and weird.
Mm-hmm.
And and what I love is that this movie brought it back, and I still, like, Pet Sematary, the remake, obviously came out, and we had him in there, but there's not really a character you get to see much in horror movies anymore. And what they loved about Cabin in the Woods is that it kind of brought back some of these, like, very old school classic horror mentalities, even if it was to flip it on its head. But at this point, like, Saw and Paranormal Activity were basically the realm of horror for the previous, like, 8 years, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So having this movie come in and just like throw so many classic horror things in your face, something's bound to stick. Yep. And that's one thing. The Harbinger, though, I was really hoping that would actually create that character existing more and more in horror movies again. It's a nice piece of expository character type that never gets old. And I've only seen South Park doing it for the last, 20 years.
Well, I mean, they kind of make the point itself in the movie is why you don't do Harbingers anymore. It's because it's what person in their right mind would have that show up and be like, it's cursed. Also, I'm going to eat your skin if you go up there. And like, you know what? Bet I'm going. Because they even pointed out in the movie, it's like, why do we have this guy? Well, it's a classic. We have to have the guy there. Because if it doesn't, and if they ignore the rules, then they get punished for it. So I think I'm trying to think of a good example off the top of my head. It's not coming to me, but they have changed the Harbinger from being straight up a dude who says, this is bad, don't do it, to being environmental cues, or being, oh, there's a legend, or the Harbinger has kind of evolved into a less direct point, because Mordecai ends up, and they make fun of him for it, being a bit too direct, and anybody who is not addled by crazy CIA drugs would not agree to what he's saying.
That's a fair point, yeah. And
that's true.
You are right. In more modern times, that sort of expository character has been replaced by a street preacher or an environmental activist who's telling you what's going to happen, which is going to, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Or like the classic saying of, when it comes to climate change, at the beginning of every disaster movie, a scientist is ignored.
Yep.
Pretty much.
Yeah. And it's like, I guess that's okay. That's fair. I never really thought about that, how that's actually kind of been translated to a different character type.
Yeah.
But there's always this, well, not always. There's usually a harbinger of some kind in most films.
He's just not usually as charismatic and charming as Mordecai.
There's a really good movie out there following that character specifically.
The Harbinger and all of the kids who didn't listen.
I would again. There's a lot of this movie has so many potentials for I don't want a sequel or anything, but little webisodes of inside that facility or other aspects of this world, this system, things would be really interesting, both from a horror aspect and the comedy aspect. It's like, okay, does Mordecai live in that gas station? Is he always there? Does he have to go into town and interact with more people? Does the facility send him goods and services, or does he have to DoorDash things? And then is that weird to his delivery guy?
And this is also being planned. Is he only ever put there when he needs to be?
Exactly. If not, is he just does he live in a trailer out back and he's just doing parcheesi by himself? What's a day in the life of Mordecai when he's not threatening children?
Is he one of the original virgins and that's why he keeps doing it?
Oh my God.
Damn, Kayla, you didn't have to kill the man.
No, the virgin gets to live some of the time. The Michael Myers bobblehead on Kevin's desk is agreeing with me, so I know it's correct.
But what kind of life is it really?
Right?
Oh,
man.
no. I mean,
we actually watched a movie a while ago about a woman with this like power to like talk to ghosts called Extraordinary. It's a really good movie, but there's a bit in there though, and it's just kind of like that, where the whole thing is that she's about to get dragged to hell to get raped by demons and all that. And this guy's like, "What can I do?" "Well, I'm a bunch of sacrifice, so if you have sex with me right now, then I won't be able to go into hell." And so she's slowly getting dragged to hell while he's quickly trying to have sex with her, and they're like in their 50s and their 60s or something.
it's played for comedy, right? Because
it's a horror comedy.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Because that could be very fucked up.
It's consensual.
Okay, good.
It's actually her idea.
Okay,
the stuff
perfect.
with his ghost of an ex-wife, that blends a little weirder.
Yeah, it's a great movie though. If you like Will Forte and like Irish comedy, I can't stress it enough.
Fair.
Yep, it's basically a guy who needs to write another hit single, so he tries to do another virgin sacrifice. And he basically used all of his riches in LA to buy a castle in Ireland.
That actually sounds pretty fucking funny.
Yeah.
Like, you have a virgin sacrifice floating off the air, but if they touch her, she'll explode, so they have to somehow move this floating virgin sacrifice to the castle.
Oh my god. But Dylan, thank you so much for coming here. That's actually our time for today. Is there anything you'd like to say? Anything you want to pitch? Or anything you want to sell?
Sell? No. Legally I can't because, well, NDAs are a pain in the ass. But what I will say, Cabin in the Woods, phenomenal fun film. If you haven't watched it, please go check it out. If you want more things like that, honestly, check out a good SCP or the Magnus Archives or things like in that realm where it's these big weird facilities that are a little too silly but also very, very dark. Fun stuff like that just keeps building imaginative horror and taking what we love and doing something weird with it. Always go for those things because you know what? Fuck it. It could be great. It might be dumb, but that's half the fun of this stuff.
That's a really good way to go out on. All right. For anybody listening, we have links in our description to buy Cabin in the Woods on Blu-ray, DVD. We got some merch there, some flyers, or not flyers, some posters. Yeah. Dylan, Kayla, you got anything left?
Thank you so much, Dylan. It's been a delightful conversation.
Well, thanks for having me. I will see you guys in the future.
Yeah.